Welcome to the Next Level Human podcast. As a human, you have a job to do. In fact, you have 4 jobs: to earn and manage money, to attain and maintain health and fitness, to build and sustain personal relationships, to find meaning and make a difference. None of these jobs are taught in school, and that is what this podcast is designed to do: to educate us all on living our most fulfilled lives through the mastery of these 4 jobs. I'm your host, Dr. Jade Teta, and I believe we are here living this life for 3 reasons, and 3 reasons only: to learn, to teach, and to love. In this podcast, I will be learning, teaching, and loving right along with you. I'm grateful to have your company. Here's to our next level.
How's it going?
Jade, what's up?
What's going on?
Dr. Jade Teta. It's about time.
I know, it's been a bit.
It's been like 3 years since we sat down and done this, at least.
It has.
So I want to get right into it. I want to know, is there any truth to the size of a man's hand or his feet in comparison to his penis?
No, but there is a correlate. There is one bit of data that might be interesting to men. Actually, you know this, right?
Yep.
The middle finger and the ring finger, the distance between those two, the ring finger should be shorter than the middle finger. And I think it's on the right hand. You might have to clarify that.
Just the right hand.
But the distance between these 2 fingers has to do with the ratio of testosterone or testosterone exposure in utero. Mm-hmm. So while you can't necessarily tell the size of someone's penis, you could essentially say if this ring finger was equal to or longer perhaps than the middle finger, that might say something about testosterone exposure in utero, which may lean more towards hypogonadism or micropenis or that kind of thing.
Okay, quick interruption here, because in this part of the interview, I realized when I was re-listening to this interview that I made a mistake here, and I want to have it accurate for you. I said that it is the middle finger and ring finger, and that's what you're looking at. That is actually wrong. It is the 2D to 4D ratio. The second finger and the fourth finger. The second finger is the pointer finger or forefinger. So the pointer finger and the ring finger are the 2 fingers we're looking at here. That's the ratio. The ring finger should be longer than the pointer finger. The pointer finger being the second digit, the ring finger being the 4th digit, the 2D to 4D ratio. That ratio of pointer finger to ring finger is what we're looking at, and the ring finger should be longer than the pointer finger. Probably something you don't care about, but I'm a little bit of a nerd with stuff like this, and I wanted to make sure you had it right. I was upset I got it wrong in the interview, and I wanted to correct it here. So let's get back to the interview now.
So that is the only real thing that I'm aware of that's evidence-based that we actually can say about penis size related to hand size or foot size that I'm aware of. There might be other data out there, but that particular stat. So I guess if a woman's looking at a man's hands to judge his penis size, she probably wants to look at the difference between the middle finger and the ring finger. And I don't think there's a correlation. I could be wrong about this, but I don't think the longer the middle finger versus ring finger doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's just that the middle finger should be longer than the ring finger, which essentially says they got adequate in utero testosterone exposure, which could correlate with potential penis size. But when you talk about penis size in general, there's an awful lot to talk about there that I think women know, you probably know, but a lot of men don't know, unless you're a man who A, has been involved with athletics, or B, someone like me who's been in the clinic and done a lot of genital exams and seen lots of male penises. So I don't know, I know you love the penis topic, so we can get into that if you want, if it will be helpful.
We'll go a little farther with it. So I do know there is actually an alternative way to measure with the grundle or the taint, shall we call, the so nicely named AG distance for Ali Gilbert. the anal genital distance.
Yeah.
So that distance between, for those who don't know, the anus and the scrotal sac has gotten a lot shorter in guys because of less exposure, right? To testosterone?
Yeah, that I don't know that that's been completely worked out and is completely, but yes, that's what many people will, essentially say. And we also know that yes, the penis size has essentially, despite the fact that sperm production has gone down over the last 20 to 40 years and testosterone levels have gone down, penis size has actually gone up. And part of the reason we think that might be is that it's largely luteinizing hormone. HCG is an analog of luteinizing hormone. And so many people know about HCG and using HCG to boost testosterone and boost sperm production. HCG may have a role to play in the length of the penis, again, in utero. And so actually what's really interesting, people with micro penis, which would be defined as less than 3 inches erect.
I was going to ask that.
As a male penis, that there is research that using HCG in some of these men can give them up to 1.5 inches in growth as adults. And so this is one treatment perhaps for micro penis in men. But yeah, there's an interesting correlation there. And that would make some sense in terms of with the endocrine disrupting chemicals and its feedback on the hypothalamus and then luteinizing hormone playing a role there, that could explain why penises are getting longer, but perhaps not working as well and not functional.
It's kind of like, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. But it's an interesting thing, right? Because I think when we talk about men, we can laugh about this stuff, but us men, like we know that this is, and no men are really going to talk about this, but we all know this. Our penis size and our penis performance is a huge piece of insecurity.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about it with our lovers. We certainly don't want to talk about it. Like if we're cis hetero men, we don't want to talk about it with our lovers.
Right.
And we certainly don't want to talk about it to other men. And it's not conversations that people want to have, which is why, probably you do what you do, because as I've often said about you, you bring this to a place that is a safe place for men to actually have these conversations. And in my mind, we should be having these conversations because no men hear this stuff. They don't ever hear these kind of things, and they don't always know about some of the differences. Like, for example, we were talking, this is a huge piece of insecurity for men. We watch porn. Men have a special relationship with porn in general, and we're seeing the porn, a male who's in porn has an average penis size of about 7 to 9 inches, okay? Yeah. Which the average male, regular male, has a penis size of about 5 inches erect. So you're talking 2, right, to 4 inches difference. Basically a whole penis on top of a penis. And we're looking at these as men and thinking that's normal, especially young men, thinking that's normal, when it's obviously not. It's a huge discrepancy. It's kind of like thinking an NFL lineman is the average size male walking around on the street. Just not the way that is. And so these things for men, we don't always talk about our insecurities, but these are really big ones. Another thing that men really don't know about the penis that a lot of women know is this whole idea of growers versus showers. And, so I'll go through that briefly, and then you can, just kind of see where you want to go with this, because I know we're going to talk about just purpose and meaning and self-esteem and all these things. But what a lot of men don't know if they haven't seen a lot of penises is that you can be a grower or a shower. So you can be, let's say, 2 inches flaccid, and you can have someone else who's 3.5 inches flaccid, and that person might grow 1 inch to erection, and you might grow, 3.5 inches to erection. And so this is something else that I think men are not necessarily aware of. So you might look at yourself and say, like, flaccid, I look small, but on your erection, you actually might be bigger than other men. And this has a lot to do with the suspensory ligament. So there's a ligament that essentially pulls the shaft of the penis back up into the body. And as men, hunter-gatherers and stuff like that, we believe we have the ability to essentially pull our testicles and part of the shaft into our bodies for protection, which is an interesting thing, which would make some sense. And then we also have the cremaster muscle, which pulls the testicles up. So, and this is why if you get somebody who's a shower, right, or a grower rather, so they're small flaccid, and then they get in a pool and the suspensory ligament tightens up and the cremaster ligament tightens up, then it's like and let's imagine they're overweight too, so they have a fat pad around the peritoneum area. You end up having a very small looking penis that might make you feel sort of inferior. I think the major thing that I'm getting around here though is that when you talk to women And they have done this. They've asked women. They've even asked women in studies where they'll show men and they'll show pictures of men normally with various length penises. Women are pretty good about picking out the size of a man's penis in inches. They're fairly good at that, and they don't prefer monster penises. They prefer a penis that's relatively around 6 inches, so slightly bigger than the male average. Now, what they do say is women find larger penises erotic to look at. This is pretty clear in the research. So a woman, but they don't necessarily want to be having intercourse with these very large penises. They find them, erotic to look at, but they prefer penises that are within the average, 5 to 7 inches. And so the final thing I'll say here too is when you really look at, and of course, I'm a cis hetero male. I've only read the cis hetero research, so I can't speak to the homosexual research here. And there's not a lot of that stuff done anyway. But, from my perspective, when you look and talk to women, lovers of men, women are far less concerned with penis size. They are more concerned with touch and the ability of a man to use his hands, his mouth, and his penis. They are far more concerned with how he behaves outside of the bedroom. So I think men, their insecurity of just being focused on, their penis is a wrong approach. And so I think it should give us men some freedom to essentially say, look, they come in all various shapes and sizes. Mine's fine. And the big issue is that it is a reflection and a barometer of health, which you talk an awful lot about. So the major thing is it working appropriately? Are you able to achieve an erection? Are you able to sustain an erection? And if you are not, there's a lot that goes into that. A lot of mental, emotional things around that. Testosterone certainly plays a role, which you deal with. But this is an issue I do think men should be aware of because we don't have these conversations, and it does speak to being in your power and sort of being in your self-esteem. And if you've never been an athlete and around lots of people, lots of men in locker rooms, or you've never done lots of genital exams like myself, you would have an issue. I'll tell you, like from my perspective as a man, until I started doing lots of genital exams and saw a true micro penis, right? I was insecure about my penis as well. It's just how us men are. But then you see enough and you're just like, well, I wouldn't want that huge, monster penis. And I'm okay here. And most men fall in that realm. And most women are far, far less concerned about this than us men are.
I would agree. I think, and you can say like growing up, being around guys who play sports and everything like that, you guys are probably trying to like catch a look discreetly in the locker room to see how you size up.
100%.
And are you like somebody else? And like if penis envy is a thing. So
yeah, I think penis envy as a young, adult male is absolutely a thing. And then you start, the more comfortable you get with yourself as a man, the more sexual encounters you have and lovers you have, and you start, and you get more mature, you start realizing that probably was a waste of your energetic resources to feel that insecure about that. But I would say that the thing that most women, when they're asked, and I actually did, I can speak to this because I did a survey myself of 3,000 women over the course of about 5 years when I was going through some tough stuff in my life and did a whole research study on what women desire in men. And on the topic of penises, it was far down on their list. What they really want, and I think this is an interesting thing that I think men don't sort of think about. Women don't relate to men the same way men relate to women. So, men are looking at women and essentially evaluating them almost like a piece of art in a very physical way at first. Women are kind of coming at it the opposite way. They can certainly look at someone and say he's attractive or not, but that man has to animate, has to talk. There's a way that he handles himself. There's a way that he shows up doing his thing. Like if you talk to women, they're most turned on by men when they see men in their power doing their thing. Versus where men might be more turned on by a woman out by the pool. A woman's not going to be like, oh my God, he's got a 6-pack and he just looks amazing and look at his package. Like, it's not that they don't feel that way. It's just that might be fun to do with their girlfriends. But in reality, they're like, what kind of dude is this guy? Does he feel safe? Is he in his power? Is he doing his 4 jobs? I call them the 4 jobs well, like, finance. Is he, and it's not that women are looking for money. They just want a guy who can take care and pay his bills, right? So finance is one. Health and fitness. Is he someone who is healthy and, fit? Personal relationships. women are really interesting. If they're into a man, they're most likely going to be like, I want him to meet my friends and see the way that he is socially, right? Versus like, oh my God, showing her friends, look how hot this dude is. It's more like they can't wait to see how he's going to be. They're watching how he is in a room with other men, with other women. So that's the third job, social. And then purpose and meaning, which I know you wanted to touch on, that's the fourth job. Like, does this guy have a sense of self? And does he know who he is in the world? Does he understand why he's here? And does he feel comfortable in his skin? And is he somebody who is doing something that makes that woman feel like, wow, he's someone in his power, which is really interesting because women are typically going to be focusing on a man who is loving her, treating her really nice, but also they really love guys who they see are going somewhere. More importantly, though, men are incredibly sensitive to their own idea of winning. One of the things that testosterone does for men is give them this whole idea of like, I want to win. I want to have drive. I want to feel like I'm doing something. Actually, I'll tell you something funny. Did I ever tell you I studied with James Hollis?
No.
So James Hollis is one of the last Jungian psychologists. He's still around. He must be in his mid 80s now. And he mainly speaks to women about male mental health. And one of the things he said at one of these conferences that I was at, this was all guys. He said, I rarely speak to all men. He goes, well, let me tell you men what I tell women when they ask me what it's like to be a man. And I found this fascinating. So what he said is, he goes, this is what I tell these girls. Imagine you're thrown into an arena and you're going to play a game. And you have no idea what the rules are. Things are going to be coming at you left and right. You have no ideas what the rules are. You just know you got to win. And if you don't win, and there can only be one winner, and if you don't win, you feel less than. He goes, this is what it's like for a man. They're playing this cultural game that they really don't understand the rules, that they know they have to try to fit in. And it's sort of like this free-for-all. And they feel like if they're not at the top of the heap, then they're less of a man. And he goes, and by the way, very few men can be at the top of the heap. He goes, so we have a group of men who feel completely inferior and don't even understand the game they're playing. And he says, when he tells this to women, there's just quiet. There's just like this idea of like, they have no idea that men struggle in this way. And then he says one other thing. He goes, now imagine you're dealing with this and you got no friends. You got no guys that no close bro friends that you can go to and say, dude, I feel inferior. I feel like I'm not winning. I feel confused. You're not allowed to do that because in this unspoken game, if you do that, you're weak and you're already losing. So you have to maintain this very stoic, sort of unemotional thing. Now, the problem in my mind is then we go into this state where the world, which is currently a feminine world the pendulum always swings. And I think we can make an argument that perhaps that's a great thing, right? Like perhaps that pendulum swinging back this way is good. However, what it does is it speaks to men in perhaps not the best way. This idea that, okay, now you got these hyper masculine men all fighting in this gladiator game that they don't know that they can win. And now they're being told, no, you need to be vulnerable and you need to be softer and you need to be this and that, which doesn't feel authentic to them either. So they find themselves in this in-between land of if they're too vulnerable and too soft, they're not respected. And if they're over here playing this masculine thing, they're called toxic masculinity and all this kind of stuff. And they find themselves in this weird thing and they are humans. Forget male, female. Just focus on the fact that we are all humans and we all struggle. And men are struggling. And this pendulum swinging back this way, which we might say is a good thing overall culturally, is leaving men in a very, in my mind, tricky situation because they don't know how to
act.
And men are sensitive to this game of success. So men do go, where's the cultural construct? Where's the cultural zeitgeist? How do I fit into this? How do I win? Now I have a solution perhaps to that, but I want to see where you want to go with this because I think when we're talking about men, it really is a difficult, issue that they find themselves presently. And I think that you have to, as a man, understand this problem first before we can start talking about how to begin to address it.
Sorry to break into the show, but I wanted to take a second to cover one of our sponsors and tell you all about Paleo Valley at paleovalley.com. These are the grass-fed sticks that I tell you all so much about that all of my friends know I have on hand constantly. They are in my car. They are at my house. I keep them at my sister's home and my parents' house. I have these things everywhere because they are the simplest, most convenient whole foods protein supplement you can get. Almost like carrying around pure protein, low carb protein in your pocket. They also, these Paleo Valley beef sticks are the only 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef sticks on the market. They use organic spices. They are naturally fermented instead of using nitrates and nitrites that can be a problem in some of these cured meats, and they simply taste fantastic. Check out the original or the jalapeno. Those are my favorites. Please make sure you go over to paleovalley.com and visit. When checking out, use the code NEXTLEVEL for a 15% discount. Remember, our sponsors keep the show going by you giving them your patronage and spending your money on these high quality products. You actually do a few things. One, you're helping to support the podcast. And two, you are helping your health. And three, you are making sure that good quality companies like Paleo Valley can be out there doing their business, changing the world, making the earth better. One of the things you may not know about this is that grass-fed organic and grass-finished beef is doing something that is so utterly important for our environment, actually helping to repopulate the topsoil. A lot of people don't know this, but our topsoil is being extremely depleted. And raising animals, especially cattle, the correct way helps to get that topsoil back. This is one of the reasons why I love Paleo Valley. Not to mention it tastes fantastic, but they're one of these companies, like my other sponsors, Cured Nutrition and Organifi, that are doing the right things by the environment. I really appreciate everything they do, and I hope you will check them out. Thanks so much. PaleoValley.com. Use the code NEXTLEVEL. And now back to the show.
I think a lot of guys, they feel that. They don't know how to articulate what exactly it is they feel. They just know that in many situations, they're almost lost and confused as to, like you said, how do I act? You know, if I compliment Ali on her t-shirt, is that allowed anymore in this culture? And do they take the lead? Do they hold the door? Do they do things that are chivalrous? Because is chivalry something people still want? You know, with the dynamic of work relationships now, where a lot of women are in the workforce and how that's trended and evolved, they're not the sole breadwinner as much anymore. And I think you combine that with now testosterone just declining so rapidly. You have a guy who has low testosterone, higher anxiety, more or less exposure to testosterone as the upbringing, more single parent households, more ability for them to internalize a lot of things because they don't know who to talk to. And they're watching porn. So that's their idea of what like sex is or a relationship. How does this affect a guy when he's trying to figure out what his purpose is in life? All of that.
Yeah, I think ultimately, when you're focused on all those things, that's the problem, because you're focused on how should I talk to women? How should I do my job? How do I stand out? How do I win? To me, it's very easy for men. The question that you say is, you go, how can I be a good human? Because that's ultimately what, when we think about men and what they are, and if we talk about masculine and feminine, now I know this is getting new agey, but the idea of masculine, feminine, they are archetypes, right? So you can have feminine in you and masculine in you, and you wax and wane between those, depending on when you're in your business mode, like you're a woman, you know, but when you're in your business mode, you can go more masculine. I have masculine and feminine in me. We have to sort of balance these two sort of energetics in us and ask the question, how do I be a good human? We men, the masculine nature is as a container, is as a space for people to thrive. It's the rock on which the water flows. So if you understand that, you go, being a good human means I show up for others in the tribe. You know, we oftentimes, I don't like the term alpha male,
Right.
But if you really want to get into what the alpha male is, the true alpha male, if you look around at, like obviously people think of the wolf pack and this and that, a true alpha male is not a dominant male in the way that most people think, because a bunch of wolves that get together, or a bunch of silverback gorillas that get together, or the female gorillas, if you're being a tyrant, they're going to beat the shit out of you. You're going to be taken out very quickly. So the idea of just dominating, that's not an alpha male. An alpha male is a protector and a lover. They balance their mother nature with their father nature. They know they can be incredibly damaging and dangerous if you fuck with their tribe, right? But otherwise, they're loving and they're open and they're protecting and a good man is how do I be a good man? Well, a good man marries these two things. They are not all masculine, dominant, pumping their chest. They are that sometimes when they need to. They are also not just vulnerable, sharing all their feelings. They are that when they need to. So I like to say, it's not an alpha man that you want. It's an authentic man, and being authentic to your nature. And what's your nature? Any human? The nature is to balance these masculine and feminine traits. Here's an example that I'll give you that I think men will relate to, that both gives you the warrior, and the witch, let's say. The warrior aspect is you're in the Roman legion, you're on the front lines, and there's a damn horde of barbaric, Germanic tribe coming down on you. Mm-hmm. And you stand on that line and you don't move because you know that I'm defending something larger than me. And you're going to fight, and you're going to fight like crazy, and you're not going to cry. You're in the fight. Now, when the fight ends, you can cry for the loss of your brothers, for the loss of the nastiness of the world and everything else. And what women, I think, oftentimes don't understand, and men themselves don't understand, is that there's a time and a place for emotion. You need to figure out how, to balance that. And that's what a good man does. A good man goes, I am here in defense of Team Human. I am here in defense of my tribe. And in order to be in defense of my tribe, I need to know when to step up and be violent and dangerous if I have to. And I need to know when to be soft and caring when I want to. And anytime a man gets violent and dangerous outside of the right context, not being a good man,
right,
they rightly should be put in their place, which is what culture has tended to do. But they're lumping everyone in there. And anytime a man gets too soft and too vulnerable, out of context, not in the right place, culture will essentially put them in their place. So if this is getting confusing from my perspective, it's just a good man is an authentic man. An authentic man is someone who's balancing their masculine and feminine and knows when to bring out one versus the other. Now, here's a popular saying. Do you know the Jordan Peterson saying that says, a good man is not a harmless man. Mm-hmm. A good man is a dangerous man that has that under control.
Yep.
Now, I like Jordan Peterson for many reasons. However, I would amend that and essentially say, a good man is defined by his actions. Whether he's harmless or dangerous has nothing to do with it. However, if he can develop his skills of being strong and being able to protect, great. And if he can develop his skills of being soft and vulnerable, even better. But what's beautiful about that is it doesn't matter your physical strength, your prowess, or anything like that. It really comes down to your choices and actions. Would we not say that if a shooter comes into a room and I am the biggest, baddest guy in the room, but I cower under a desk, I might be the dangerous one, but that doesn't mean I'm good. But there's someone else who's smaller in stature than me, maybe not as muscular as me, whatever, that jumps and tries to stop that man. It's the actions that define you. So as a man, you solve this by simply going, I choose to be in defense of Team Human, to take it on the chin for Team Human without the need for acknowledgement, reciprocation, or reward. That's part one. And then the second part is, I choose to be an experience and an example for all men that I can show my emotions and not be afraid of that. That I can speak my insecurities and not be afraid of that. And I know when to show up with either one. And there's tools and techniques in this, but men, in my mind, need to do that. They shouldn't look to Jade Teta or some other guy or mixed martial arts or porn or any of that to say, how am I going to show up in bed? How am I going to show up in the boardroom? How am I going to show up, on the street? You essentially just go, what is my unique nature, balancing this authentic masculine and feminine inside of me? And then what's my unique nature? What is my personality, my unique personality? What are my passions, my interests? What are my talents? Who are the people I've been exposed to who've helped me and hurt me, who've shaped me? And most importantly, what is my pain? What is my struggles? And when you take those, your pain, your people, your personality, right? Your passions and your superpowers, and you put them together, you become like a spiritual fingerprint, a purpose potential. That it's not, I don't find my purpose in that way. You just essentially go, look, here's who I am. There's never been another person like this man in the history of humanity, nor will there ever be again. And these 5 elements that I'm talking about here are the elements that you get to put together like a puzzle piece, and you get to choose. I'm going to do X with this. And the one thing I would say to men is that your struggles, the things that have been most painful for you, are oftentimes your hint about what you might choose to do to better the world. Imagine suffering being a source of meaning, pain being a path to purpose, or hurt being a way to help. This, to me, is how men begin to get back to their in defense of Team Human. Instead of being like, I'm going to just hold all my pain in. I'm going to act as part of this, barbarian strong guy, and beers and barbells and, pound on my chest, and I'm just a tough guy. Or I'm going to be this soft, vulnerable, new agey guy because that's what the girls like. That's what we're dealing with men. Instead, the men, I think, that find their way through this is they go, no and no. I'm going to be authentic and balance the masculine and feminine within me. And I'm going to take these 5 elements that make me me and take my struggles, and I'm going to choose to do something valuable for the world. This, to me, is a man. And in relationship with women, now imagine being that stand where you're just like, baby, I'm not going to be vulnerable, but I will be, I don't think vulnerable is the right word for men. I think being open and available, being open to share and available to share when you're asked and when you need it. But not just, I'm going to just be gushing my feelings all the time. Women might say they want that. They don't. No. Because what they want is a container, a stand. By the way, men want that too. If any women are listening to this, any woman who wants to have their man completely shut off to them, call him a loser. Call him a pussy. And treat him like he's a loser or a pussy. That is the worst thing you can do to a man. And any man who has any sense of himself at that point is out. If I was ever with a woman that said, you're a pussy or you're a loser. So fun, I don't know, Jerry Maguire, maybe I'm showing my age. You ever see that movie, Jerry Maguire?
Yes.
So I'm showing...
I'm not that close.
Showing my age, but there's a scene there, right, where she goes, you're not a pussy. And he goes, wait, who said anything about pussy? Yep. Because that is a very sensitive place for a man. But I think this is the way out. And we can go wherever you want with this, but I have 2 techniques to get men started on this where they can begin, because it can get confusing. It's like, okay, Jade, cool, I get it. This might sound good, sounds airy-fairy until you actually give me some techniques that I can use to begin this process.
I'd like you to delve into that because I have questions expanding on the thought process. And so I would love to, how you help guys or things that they could do strategically.
Yeah. Well, the first thing comes from the world of post-traumatic stress disorder. So, obviously we all know this is, and, everyone has it, but it's very popular with men coming back from war, post-traumatic stress. How do you deal with this? Well, exposure therapy is one way. This can be tricky, by the way. So anyone listening to this who has PTSD, get treatment for it. But most men aren't diagnosed with PTSD, but they have traumas. They have real struggles. The first technique to do is to do what's called written exposure therapy. This is an evidence-based thing that they use actually for the worst PTSD cases. And essentially what it is it's a story edit, right? So let's imagine me, and let's say one of my traumas, okay, when I was young was my mother. She was very volatile. She had her own childhood issues. So she was emotionally volatile. I never knew what I was going to get. And that made me distrust women, which had ramifications for me later in life. Now, what I do is I go back and I write this story, exactly how it is, remembering the times my mom freaked out, remembering not being able to trust her, remember her saying she's going to leave, like bring up all these feelings and write it out like you're writing a movie. You're a director and producer in a movie, and you write up all the way to present moment. And I would write about my affair and my divorce because this is all part of this. Then you get to where you are in present moment. Now, this might take you 5 minutes, might take you 10 minutes. You do it pretty fast. You don't, and you focus on the feelings that, all the things you're aware of. Then you write into the future as if you're a director and producer of a movie, giving it plot and saying, because I was hurt in this way, because I distrusted women, because I had this affair, it allowed me to understand my own, for me, I'll just use me as an example, my own dysfunction with honesty. That I was a nice guy, I was always kind, but I wasn't honest. I was a people pleaser. And as a result of this trauma and this thing that happened, it taught me that honesty is kinder than kindness. And it allowed me to put in my honor code that I am going to be an honest person who helps people regulate emotions and who is a stand for emotions and allows people to express their emotions and understands when people are going through struggles. Because this brings it full circle, right? My trauma, my hurt allows me to develop lessons that I can then pass on to other people. So you do this story edit, you write it out, which puts choice and action into your traumas. That's the first thing that you do. And this is very powerful. In fact, within 5 treatments, it takes about 40 minutes to do this. Within 5 treatments, people with severe PTSD, significant amounts of them, without any drugs, therapies, anything else, have been able to get over their traumas. Now, some people, just to make this complete in the research, some people get a little worse because these traumas can be, but these are the worst. For most of us who don't have these serious traumas, this is very powerful. And you can do this as often as you want. Now, I know some guys listen to this like, Jade, come on, man, you're telling me to write a diary? That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm telling you.
Journal.
That's exactly. And what I'm saying is it's evidence-based, but what you have to think about this. It's helping you process to be the alpha man, the authentic man. Because if you can't process your pain, you're more likely to pass that pain on to others. If you can process that pain, you're more likely to use that pain as a purpose to help others. So that's the first thing you do, that story edit. Now, the next thing you do is this, because we all know that story edit, you might go, okay, this feels good. I've made this choice. I've written out this thing. I have this now narrative of who I want to be. But guess what? Shit's going to happen in the world. The storms are going to come. So you need an anchor and a lighthouse that when the shit hits the fan, which it will, when finances get tough, when romance get tough, when health and fitness and illness and all that stuff comes around, which it's going to, we're all going to die, we're all going to age, we're all going to deal with this stuff. When all the shit hits the fan in life, you need something to anchor to. What is that? That's an honor code. That's the guy standing on the front lines, that Roman legion soldier with the barbaric Germanic horde coming down on him. The only reason he stands there and doesn't run is he's fighting for something bigger than himself. So what the next thing is you do an honor code. And the way the honor code work is very simple. You go, who are my heroes? For me, some of mine are Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, Bruce Lee, Muhammad Ali, the Morpheus figure from The Matrix. And then I write down, who are all these people? They're teachers. They stood for something powerful. They took it on the chin for Team Human. So I have words around them. Teachers, warriors, ahead of their time, took it on the chin, right? And then I go, all right, here are my heroes. Then the next stage is, I imagine I'm at my eulogy and you and all my friends are around and they're coming up talking about me and I'm a spirit in the back of the room and I hear what they're saying about me. What would I want them to say? Well, I'd want to say, Jade was honest. Jade was generous. Jade was, a warrior for what he believed in. He, all the things that are going to be similar to my heroes. So I get very clear on that. So that's 2 parts. The third part is, now imagine on my deathbed and I'm dying. What would make me proud of the life I lived? How would I have, again, it'd be the same things for me. Using my lessons to help people, being generous, being honest, right? And then finally, and this is the most important part of an honor code. So now you have all those things and these words and these things that you stand for. The last part is, now you have to go, what will I not tolerate from the world? What are my boundaries and standards? And oftentimes they're the opposite of what you're doing. Dishonesty. I won't deal with that. I will never deal with someone calling me a pussy or not believing in me. If you don't have a rule, if you treat me a way I'm not or no longer wish to be, you will not be in my life. Whether I have 30 years in with you as a romance or whatever it is, you just won't. And so now with those, now you write down essentially your 5 to 10 commandments For me, I have them tattooed on my body. Do it however you want. But these things, when shit gets tough, right? I go, wait, who is it that I want to be? So when I see sexism or racism or even healthism now, it's like you're basically a bad person if you don't have a six pack. Like when I see these things, I go back and I go, no, I will be the one that stands up for that. This is the authentic male in me. This is why I'm on the planet. And a lot of it for me is it's no mistake that I help women primarily my whole life deal with some of the mental, emotional issues that they struggle with. Why? My mom was preparing me for this. Isn't it funny that the very people we've had in our lives and the very struggles and pain we have in our lives, if we really look, you'll see that those things can be used. It's not find your purpose,
100%.
Create it, you choose it. And I think men are missing this. Your pain is actually the thing you need to look at so that you can begin to help people. And this story edit and this honor code help you anchor and go, no, here's who the fuck I am going to be. And I don't give a shit what Jade's doing. I don't care how badass that mixed martial art dude is. And I don't care how big that dude's penis is in the porn thing. I don't care what they're doing. I'm going to be this guy. This is who I'm going to be because no one else can be him. No one else has my history. I got to be that dude. I got to step up and be the man. And how do you do it? You do it in every interaction. When you go to Starbucks, when you go out to eat, when you're filling up your tank of gas, when you're making love, to your woman, when you are, meet a cute, attractive woman, and you're going to be, chivalrous instead of chauvinist, right? You're going to show up and be like, I don't want to be the guy who gives all the guys a bad name. I want to say, fine, she's beautiful, but that's not her whole thing. She's also brilliant, and she's also funny, and she's also all these other things. I want to be the guy that makes people feel amazing about themselves, not just based on how they look. And you get to show up like that every single day as a man. And here's what's interesting. When you start to do that, you start using your hurt to help people instead of use your hurt to hurt people. Because that saying, there's that saying, hurt people. That is true.
Yeah.
But hurt people just as often help people. And an authentic man, a true alpha man, a true man who's in his power is going to be like, no, I'm going to use my hurt to help. And that changes the whole conversation because all of a sudden you're just like, none of this other shit that I was worrying about. Like your penis size has nothing to do with that. Your six pack has nothing to do with that. And when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to look back and be like, damn, I wish I had a bigger penis and a better six pack. No, you're going to be like, I'm happy who I helped and how I showed up in the world. Even if no one noticed, I noticed. And I think this is the conversation that men actually, I believe, perhaps I'm wrong, but I believe most men hearing this intuitively, spiritually, they go, yes, that's who I am. They're just confused about how to find it.
I want to jump in real quick and tell you about one of my favorite new products. And to start out, I want to ask you a question. If you had to follow your friends around who are not the healthiest in the world and see what they are doing, what would be the number one thing you would probably tell them to do to start? For most people, that's going to be drinking more water, right? This is something that we talk about all the time in health and fitness. It's almost as if we think of it as an afterthought now because obviously water is so crucial. However, we oftentimes get this wrong. For example, did you know that when it comes to hydration, just drinking water can make things worse? Most people don't know this. Why? Partly because most people are over drinking water and under consuming the electrolytes that help water do its job. What we don't realize is that hydration is not just about water. It's about electrolytes, the minerals in there, as well as getting that water into the cells. And so you do not want to be over consuming water if you're not getting your electrolytes right. And this opens up a whole new discussion because most people are not getting their electrolytes right. For example, did you know that low sodium, too low sodium, is an issue? Just as much, if not more so, than high sodium. In other words, what we want if we're going to get the right electrolytes is to get the right amount of sodium and potassium and magnesium in the Goldilocks zone. We don't want too much. We don't want too little. We want it just right. This opens up a whole other thing here too, because people who are exercising, doing sauna therapies, doing low carb diets are disrupting and losing lots and lots of their electrolytes. For example, when insulin is not around in low carb diets, you will excrete lots of sodium. In other words, under that state, exercising, low carb diets, all these things, you actually need more sodium. And so if you're somebody who's been just drinking water, not paying attention to electrolytes, and also feeling fatigued, feeling like you're underperforming, not sleeping right, getting cramps, twitches, headaches, any of these things, then you are probably dealing with an electrolyte issue. This is where the product LMNT comes in. This product has been a game changer for me and many of my patients and clients. This is a rehydration electrolyte beverage, basically. It is a powder of electrolytes formulated with 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams magnesium without the added sugar and other nonsense that comes in beverages like Gatorade. This stuff is basically a rehydration beverage on steroids. It is the thing that is going to replenish your electrolytes in the right ratios, decrease fatigue, really correct chronic dehydration. And by the way, many people are dehydrating themselves, becoming hyponatremic, low sodium, when they're consuming too much water. You need your electrolytes on board, especially if you are someone who is losing lots of sodium and other electrolytes through low carb diets and lots of exercise. This is where LMNT comes in. LMNT is a new sponsor to the Next Level Human podcast. I cannot recommend this product enough. I have been using this stuff for months now, and I have immediately seen changes in my energy levels. I feel like I'm operating on a whole other level, and I have seen this as being the primary thing that people who have been using LMNT have been telling me, that their fatigue is getting better, especially fatigue that comes after very intense workouts that involve lots of sweating and lots of intense output from the nervous system. Please check out LMNT. Use the code NEXTLEVEL. DrinkLMNT.com. That's DrinkLMNT.com. DrinkLMNT.com, and let's get back to the show.
They're focused on the wrong things. And I think that's a beautiful framework for them to really confront the things that they're avoiding. And I think a big reason a lot of people, men and women, avoid confronting these types of traumas is because of social media and porn and things that distract us. Mm-hmm. We can easily escape that shit. Mm. And it's funny that you talk about using your hurt to help people. I think I'll joke about when people ask me how I got into men's health. I say I have daddy issues, but my dad is bipolar. I don't talk to him really. And he had a tremendous impact on how I saw guys. And I wanted to make men proud or please them. I wanted them to like me. And I think part of that is the ability to now be relatable to them and, make an environment that's safe for them to talk. And that's how I used that trauma to push it towards, going towards men's health.
I love that, Ali, because that's it.
Yeah.
That's how it's done. You took something that was incredibly traumatic, became aware of it. By the way, men, this is another problem with men. We don't want to do self-development work. No. It's the most important thing you can do. As a man, the most important thing you can do is look at your shadow and your shit. And we don't want to do that. But how did you get to where you got to without it? How did I get to, you do amazing work for men. And it came out of, who would have known when you were struggling through all the shit, and I'm sure you went through all kinds of difficult relationships with men and struggles with men and sadness around men and repeating the patterns about your dad. And then you come to find out, holy shit, all of that was preparing me for this. Now, you could have done other things equally beautiful, but you chose this. Mm-hmm. It didn't just fall on you. The puzzle pieces were there. You could have made several different puzzles, and you probably have. I've known you a while, so I've seen you do different purposes. But this was something you were like, I'm uniquely suited for this. And every man needs to do the same thing. And they need to do it in their own way, not the way a woman would do it.
Right.
It's got to be coming from the place of the man. I just think men they play the culture level game. The culture level game says the culture wants me to be this, and if I'm not this man, I fail. You're never going to be the man for culture. You can't live up to that.
No.
What you can live up to is you can be your man in your sphere right where you are right now, living your honor code, using your pain as a path to help people. And when you do that, you will, in a very roundabout way, help yourself and transcend this. And then you'll look back at these younger men, and by young, I mean immature, because most men die and most women die, I would say, as teenagers. They die in a culture level state. You'll get to a place where you're looking and going, I wish that people could just escape this culture level nonsense. You escape it by what we're talking about here.
Yeah, there's conversations I'll have, because I ask on my intake forms even, describe childhood traumatic experiences or any traumatic experience you've had throughout your life. Because when you just bring that onto them in a consult, it might kind of shock a guy. But for him to write it out, and it forces them to write it out. And then we discuss it. And then I understand their relationships. And of course, I'm sure they're like, what does this have to do with fitness and health? I just want to lose some weight. But a lot of it, right? And the more we go deeper into them realizing why they might have a relationship with food or fitness, or don't want to confront food or fitness, is because of their past trauma. It's like a light bulb went off. And then the conversation can go into, I ask about premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction and all that stuff, because that can also play a role. Because there are guys who've had very traumatic teenage relationships that have infiltrated their relationships in the rest of their lives, but they don't realize it because they don't do the self-development, or they just don't want to sit with their own thoughts, which I think is really terrifying for a lot of people. For you to be bored, like when you and I were growing up, sitting on the porch with nothing was normal. Like our parents did it. We would just sit on the porch and talk. Nowadays, no one can do that unless they're looking at their phone or they've got some sort of stimulation or distraction. And that is huge. And so that being said, with setting that precedent for guys to be able to do that work, do you ever find that men who feel that they've been, I guess, labeled as more of a beta male culturally, where they are very passive, they kind of give in to what the woman wants to do, they don't take the lead, they know they're aware of all those behaviors, is it the same way that you would approach them coming out of that? And are they able to come out of that? Because a lot of guys are just not sure. Yeah,
they're able to come out of it. But for me, and you'll have to forgive me here, but to me, I just go, that idea, you know who calls people beta males? Alpha males who aren't really alpha. Alpha males who want to tear other people down. To me, there's no real such thing as a beta male. There's such thing as a male who has not found his power yet.
Yeah.
And to me, if you want to label that beta and other somebody, go ahead and do that. But then you're falling into the same cultural narrative.
Right.
From my perspective, what we should be doing is you go, if there's a man listening to this who's more of an artist type, more of an introvert, softer in his nature and not aggressive in his nature, and didn't play sports, and instead, was into music and other things, and isn't aggressive by nature. This guy might be the guy who jumps up and takes down the person shooting. You can call him a beta male all you want, but if he is in his power and he knows what he is doing, that's all he needs. So this idea of what are we judging for that? A man does not have to be any way. There is no way to be a man.
Right.
There's a way that you get to show up and decide, here's who I'm going to be. And I do think this, and I actually think this about men and women. I think every man, especially a man though, when he looks at his masculine-feminine balance, wants to be the guy who's the hero. Not in the way that culture says it,
right,
but in the way that he wants to and hopes that he can step up and do the right thing at the right time. And he's never going to do that, in my mind, or be that guy if he's this alpha dude who, thinks just being in the gym is going to make, or having a gun or whatever the macho, male does, versus the, more softer male. Both of these men are absolutely powerful men if they can get in alignment with their authentic nature, understand these 5 elements we talked about with purpose, and choose and decide who they're going to be. Think about this. Like, I oftentimes think about these, I hate to, these men who are like more like so traditionally masculine to the point where it might be getting toxic. Like, I'll shoot you, I'll beat you up. I got to be stronger. I got to know jujitsu. I got to do all this stuff. These particular people, in my mind, if they're not in touch with their inner sort of direction and have their honor code and this and that, this guy that they're calling, whatever, the beta dude who is gonna be the one who shows up. He's gonna be the one. You want to know why? Because he thought about it. He's intentional. He goes about his day like that. He is gonna be the hero. And there's a reason why women in particular, like if you look at younger women, now of course, I'm older, so all of this is cultural, but I will say this. There's a reason why women love the starving artist situation. And oftentimes the reason why they leave the starving artist if he doesn't eventually make it. But all these meathead dudes, like if you see a guy out there who's, a musician and following his art, women see that. That's a dude in alignment with, sort of where he's going. Now, what happens is as we grow, we also have to realize that life is doing this with us. So maybe we're into fitness, maybe we're not. Maybe we're into art, maybe we're not. But we're having all these experiences and we're learning, and we have to use all that as the paint of our paintbrush and use it. So when you get stuck, if the artist, the musician gets stuck and he's like still in his 50s now and still trying to be, a YouTube music star now, right? That's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
But if he's 52 and he's still trying to like drive the sports car or the huge car with the big wheels and, trying to, do jujitsu and train and all this kind of stuff, he's also missing something. And the only reason now, if that's really your authentic self and that's really who you are, cool. But I think we know whenever you see patterns where there's an awful lot of guys like that, and there's an awful lot of guys like this, and that tells you that they're missing their authentic nature. To me, what I want to see and what I look at for friends of men, and I go, who is this dude? Is he who he is? And I have all types, right? Some that are a little bit more feminine than me, some that are more masculine than me, some that like weights and jujitsu and beers and ball games, and some who want to go to the Louvre and like hang out and like, talk marketing and philosophy with me. Yeah. The thing that all of them have in common, though, most of my close male friends and the ones that I think are highly respected by men and women and culture in general, is they are who they are. They know who the fuck they are, and they don't care what you say. They could care. They may never touch a weight in their life, but they know who they are and why they're on the planet, and they are there to do their job. They don't care what you think. They have the courage to be disliked. They have a philosophy that goes, I'm here, I know why I'm here, and I'm going to be the thing and do the thing regardless of what you think and regardless of whether I get acknowledgement, reciprocation, or reward. And when you start showing up as that man, and it's just a choice. Like the sky becomes the limit. All these other things that you're worried about become far less of an issue.
They're not important, and it's sexy as fuck.
Yeah, and you know what your type becomes at that point? Because these young men with certain types, like I like this type of girl and this and that. Your type becomes the girl who sees you and goes, that's the kind of man I want, right? All of a sudden you just go, I'm not about that. I'm about whatever sees me and resonates with me. Because once you become in alignment with your masculine, feminine, purpose nature, you start pulling in. It's not the law of attraction. That's ridiculous. It's just the law of recognition. Like if I'm going to buy a red Tesla, right? I'm going to buy a red Tesla. I start seeing red Teslas show up everywhere. Matter of fact, I noticed that my next door neighbor has a red Tesla too. It's not magic. It's not the law of attraction. It's just the law of recognition. Yeah. Well, when you become the thing and you start showing up in the world as that dude, guess what happens? The woman who's looking for that goes, damn, there's my red Tesla right there. And you also go, oh shit, there's my red Tesla. And all that other bullshit falls away simply because you're like, I'm going to be this authentic guy. There is no way to be a man. The way to be the man is using your challenges, your people, your passions, your superpowers, your personality, right? Like your pain, and going, here's what my life has been about, and I'm going to take all this and use it to help the world. To me, that's what a next level man is. That's what a true authentic man is. I'm going to use my experiences to better the world in the way I can. I'm going to grow myself to better the world. I'm going to use my hurt to help people, not hurt people. And when you do that, everything begins to change. And in a roundabout way, giving up the need to have acknowledgement, reciprocation, and reward, all of a sudden you start getting it.
I'm sitting here like also like in admiration of how long I've known you and how your message, despite the various arenas that you've spoken on, it's pretty consistent with doing what works for you and not trying to do what somebody else is doing or trying to emulate somebody, just doing what works for you. And
100%.
That's it. Yeah, like it's awesome, and it's very like it's a compliment to you and how you've gone through your own self-work and everything. And when you were describing the guys wanting recognition, it actually made me laugh because guys who usually want a six-pack and a certain look think that the women are going to come flocking, but the guys actually come flocking in the gym like, bro, how do you look like that? You know, and they get all these compliments from other dudes and they're like, no chicks care. And you're 100% right. Like, we would go and we, as a female, like in their younger days, I would be like, oh, you know, he looks good. And that's what we would kind of look for. And then as you mature and grow, the sexiest guys that I've found to be super sexy didn't have six packs and didn't have a certain look.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
It's crazy, but I think, you know, people, when they realize that and then they do that reflective work to understand who they are and how they want to show up, then the person that they're meant to be with is going to be right in front of them. And they just never saw it before.
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things that I find very interesting about this conversation is the man who shows up will always be the man. And by show up, I mean the man who shows up according to his honor code again and again and again and is an authentic dude. And it's just like, this is who I am. Now, you might not like him, but you'll respect him. Right. You're going to respect that guy because you're never going to be like, I don't respect him. You just might disagree with him, but and he's going to respect himself. Now, I think the only other thing I would add to that for men is, and they should get this, once you get on this path, you essentially go, life gives you opportunities to grow all the time. So keep growing. Don't be the obstinate, closed-minded dude. Bias and dogma will kill. Like, the most intelligent person in the world is going to be rendered impotent if they have bias and dogma. Yeah. You have got to be open to what the world gives you. And I do think men, more than women, if they're too in their masculine and not enough, because, you know, look, these are archetypes. Again, I know it sounds new agey. Just think of them as energetics. The feminine is more flowy, adventurous, artsy in the nature of that energetic. The masculine is more grounded, focused, etc. If you get too grounded and focused and you can't think outside your box anymore, you know that you're running into problems. And the one thing I would say to this is, how do you know? So like in my metabolism work, I oftentimes talk about this idea of SHMEC in check, sleep, hunger, mood, energy, and craving. Yes. Well, there's a self-development SHMEC in check too. If you see repeated patterns, stuck emotions, and recurrent obstacles again and again in your life, again and again in these 4 jobs, finance, same shit. You're making more money, but you got the same amount of money in your bank account, no matter what. Same relationship shows up, just a different girl. You know, health and fitness struggles. You lose some weight and you eat all the pizza and burgers and this, and this. And it happens again and again. You keep losing, you gain, losing again. Purpose and meaning. You feel like you don't matter. You're constantly in the need of acknowledgement, reciprocation, and reward. If you keep seeing those things, it's you. The best way to think about it is you got a bro who's got bad breath. He doesn't know. You know. Everyone else knows. And they're going to be like, yo, you want some gum? And they're going to keep their distance. And that dude is not going to have made out with a girl probably in 5 years. And that dude's got to get the hint. Yeah. Go, something's up. I got bad breath. Same thing here. If you're going through life thinking that your shit doesn't smell, but you're seeing the same repeated patterns, recurrent obstacles, and stuck emotions, then bro, you're the problem. If you voluntarily expose yourself to toxic stuff, then you're the toxic one. And this is one of the first things I think that men need to just understand. We are known, unfortunately, as men to be the ego dominant types. Loosening that up a little bit and just go, what are the patterns that I've seen come up over and over and over again in my life? What are the obstacles I've seen? What are the stuck emotions that I constantly feel? And when do I feel them? Let me change that way of being. And if you start doing that, you know, this is sort of what the honor code and the exposure therapy, the written exposure therapy does. Yeah. It helps you sort of get in touch with this.
I love that. And you've provided a very easy start tomorrow way for guys to be able to lay out this stuff, literally rewriting their pain and trauma, which I think for a lot of people, men or women alone, it's hard. Like it is literally, like I said, to be alone with your thoughts. For a guy to sit and just rewrite something that has been so painful that he has completely internalized, not talked to anybody about, and just pushed far away from him is a fantastic first step for him to be freed of that ruining him and actually helping him.
100%.
Jade, thank you.
Love you.
I love you too.
You have been listening to the Next Level Human podcast with Dr. Jade Teta. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe and consider leaving a review. You make the biggest difference when you pass on your lessons and inspire others. That's why reviews like this are so powerful. Your words may be the only ones that resonate for someone else. Please remember the information in this podcast is for educational purposes only. Always consult your personal physician or therapist before making any lifestyle changes. And finally, thank you for who you are in the world and the difference you make.